What is up everyone, Movie back again with another end of month vlog. This is just me talking about everything I watched in the month of July 2023. I got through quite a bit this month, and at the end of the month I did have a newborn son come along. So the last week of July I didn't really watch too much, and this month in August, as I'm filming this, it is a little bit slower, but everything up to that, it was quite a quick month. So just a little announcement there for the channel that I do have a newborn son, and his name is Sonny, and I'm absolutely over the moon with him. So I just thought I'd let you guys know that. But let's just get into it now with the first thing I watched, because I've got quite a bit to get through here. Now I'm going to kick it right off the bat here with my older release of the month, and that is Aliens, out of this box set. So yeah, I watched the second movie. It's one of my favourite films of all time. I rewatch it now and again. I've seen it more times than most movies. It's just a film that I can throw on. And I think it was Sunday morning, I just felt like, you know what, I'm just going to watch Aliens here. And I had a blast with it. This film never gets old. The characters are what makes the movie for me. But I like the way Cameron turned the first movie on its head and made it more action orientated there. Didn't do the exact same thing and make it a horror sci-fi film. It's just a kick-ass movie from start to finish. Always watch the director's cut, as it gives a more of a mother arc to Ripley and Newt there. I just think that really comes together so well. It's just a fantastic film, and the third act is awesome, where Ripley has to go and rescue Newt from that queen alien. I love this film to bits, and it remains in my top 5 movies of all time. So that is my older release of the month, Aliens. Sorry that if you were waiting for something else and it's the start of the video, but we do have a new release of the month coming soon. So yeah, older release of the month, and the first one of July is Aliens. Next up, I watched Guy Ritchie's new film, Not the Covenant, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. I know that's out. But I watched Operation Fortune with Jason Statham. And now this was a very strange film, the way it was all put together. I feel like he's trying to be like Snatch and Lock, Stock and the Gentleman, but with a more, spy thriller type movie thrown in there. And it didn't quite work in the construction of the film. There were some scenes that just felt very, very off and misplaced, but I still had a good time with this film. It had some really funny characters in there. I mean, the movie was hilarious. I had a great time, with some of these characters' dialogue and the interactions together. Aubrey Plaza is always a joy to watch on screen. And I think she works really well with Jason Statham. Josh Hartnett's thrown in there, who's really making a comeback, I feel, in the movie industry lately. And this is a great role for him as this really top Hollywood star within the movie. Yeah, it's not one of Guy Ritchie's best, but it's a fine film. I had fun with it. It's mid-tier Guy Ritchie for me. Just a little bit strange regarding the story at times, but I still had a good time with it, and I do recommend it if you like Guy Ritchie. So that is Operation Fortune. Next up, I'm just going to be showing another box set off here, and that is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So you can guess what's coming up soon. Yes, the new Indiana Jones film I'll speak about in a minute. But I watched all 3 in the month of June, the first original trilogy. And I wanted to go back and revisit Kingdom of the Crystal Skull before getting into the 5th one. And you know what? This movie, I had a good time with it. I did. I don't think it was ever as bad as what I thought it was. It's not as good as the first 3, obviously. But there is some fun to be had with this movie. I kind of like Shia LaBeouf in this film, although sometimes he did get quite annoying with his attitude problem, but he kind of fits being Indy's son, I feel. And some people may totally disagree with that, but I think the chemistry with him works in the movie. I think Ray Winston's character is very weak in this film because he's double-crossing everyone every 2 minutes, and it just happens once too many times throughout the film, and it kind of gets annoying. But the story is kind of good until the 3rd act. I think that's where the movie all falls apart a little bit there with the alien and stuff. But it was still an entertaining time watching Indy go on one of his adventures again. And yeah, I had a fun time with it. It's like a 3 out of 5 movie. So yeah, that is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Next up, I watched Matilda the Musical. This is one from last year that I missed out on, and I really did want to see this, even though I'm not a big fan of musicals, because I love the original Matilda film. It's a movie I grew up with, so it would have been nice to see the comparisons here. And you know what? I wasn't a fan of the music, really, in this film. The songs weren't great or anything, but when it just focused on the story and the retelling of Roald Dahl's classic tale, I was really having fun with it. I thought Stephen Graham as Mr. Wormwood was... okay, he's not as good as Danny DeVito, but he still put in a great performance here as this character. He's this real sleazeball. He was probably the best thing about the film, in my opinion. The young girl who played Matilda was fine. I think Emma Thompson as the Trunchbull put in a decent performance as well. She kind of had the whole look and everything going on. It's not as good as the original for me. It isn't. And the music sort of gets in the way. It's a little bit long as well. But I had a fun time with it. It was fine. It was fine. It's just, I kind of wish that they just retold the story and went in a few different ways instead of making it a full-on musical. But overall, still not a bad movie. Next up, I have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, I give this movie a 3.5 when I went to see it, but the more I think back on it now, I probably should have just given it a 3 out of 5 on my Letterboxd there. This film is very, very long. I felt the pacing. It's a 2.5-hour movie, because every movie is these days, but I did actually feel that towards the end of the film, unfortunately. I don't think Mads Mikkelsen was a very good villain, one of the weakest in the whole of the Indiana Jones series, and I don't think many of them are that great, to be honest. Interesting concept with this artifact that he's got to go and find, and has these supernatural abilities to go back in time and stuff like that. That was interesting, and it didn't feel out of place, really, because a lot of the Indiana Jones films focus on supernatural elements with the MacGuffin item he's going to find, if you like. I don't think Phoebe Waller-Bridge was all that of a welcome addition. I've never really found her to be a likable on screen. I think she always does this stupid grin after everything she says, and it really grates on me. So it had a lot of mixed elements for me. It's a fine adventure movie, but overall a slightly little bit of a letdown, considering James Mangold made this film, and he's a fantastic director, but this is definitely one of his weakest for me. But overall, not bad, just a very average movie. So that is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Next up, we have The Sacred Spirit. Now, this was recommended by a YouTuber called Elliot Cohen, and I would never have probably picked this up, but I heard him talk highly of it, and I thought, you know what, I'll just give it a go. And I grabbed it off the shelf a few months ago, and I finally got round to it, and my God, I did not like this movie whatsoever. Sorry, Elliot, I know you're probably not even watching, but I just found this to be such a boring, dull, like a boring, dull, and depressing movie, if you like. Like, it's all filmed like it looks like it's made in 1995 on a video camera. I know that's the look they were going for, but it just did not work for me in particular. This is basically about this group of people who believe in UFOs and aliens and stuff, and they get together into this little group every Tuesday or something and talk about their past findings, or people who've spotted UFOs and stuff, and they bring it to their attention. They actually believe that it's really going on. And then you've kind of got to wait till the final act for the movie to all unveil itself. Maybe mostly the last 10 minutes, really. I thought that was a cool little clever twist. But overall, I just found this to be a chore to sit through. I really didn't like it. I give it 2 out of 5 on my Letterboxd, but I probably should have went a little bit lower there. Definitely one of Arrow's weaker titles. Maybe on rewatch I would see it in a totally different light. But for me, this movie just wasn't very good, in my opinion. And one that I do not recommend, that is The Sacred Spirit. And this is a Spanish movie from a couple of years ago, I believe. I think it was like 2021. So, yeah, not a good film, in my opinion. Next up, we have another horror documentary, Living with Chucky. Now, I had a great time with Never Sleep Again. I finally got to that. I know it's like a 10-year-old documentary, but I finally got to it. I had a great time with it. And I watched Pennywise, the story of it. I watched Stephen King on screen. So I've been getting into my horror documentaries lately. And this one came out, and when I went to HMV, I just grabbed it off the shelf straight away. And this follows one of the special effects coordinators who works on the Chucky movies, his daughter. I'm really sorry I forgot her name. But she, yeah, I'll tell you now, Kyra Elise Gardner. And she directs this documentary and goes through each one of the movies, kind of like Never Sleep Again does, and gives a little bit of time to each film. What I loved about Never Sleep Again is it gave an equal amount of time to each film, no matter if it was the 5th one, the first one. They got a decent enough amount of runtime to each movie. Here, Child's Play 3 was skipped over after about a minute, and there was just less time given to each film. I kind of wish they give it all the equal amount of time, and then it kind of goes into Kyra Elise Gardner's life, living as someone who is involved in the Chucky family, basically. But it was still a really good watch. I really did enjoy this. It was great to see Brad Dourif and his daughter Fiona Dourif, and all the people who've worked on the Chucky movies and the directors talk about their past experiences, how Chucky became a franchise and stuff like that. If you're a Chucky fan, I definitely recommend it. And that is what I am. It's my favourite franchise alongside Nightmare on Elm Street. So I had to give this a watch. And yeah, I did enjoy it. It's just not as good as Never Sleep Again, but it's done in sort of the same vein. And you can have a really good time with this if you're a fan of the franchise. So that is Living with Chucky. Next up, I watched a Netflix original called Becky. Now, we are getting Wrath of Becky at some point here in the UK. I know the rest of the world seems to have got it. Maybe it is out. I don't know. I just can't seem to see it. But I went back and watched the first one. And this follows the young girl from The Conjuring, the second Annabelle movie. Annabelle Creation, is it? As this young girl called Becky. And she goes to this cabin with her parents, or her dad, sorry, and his new wife, or soon-to-be wife. And she just can't get on board with it. She doesn't like her dad's new squeeze, if you like. And she just doesn't want to be there. And when they're there, Kevin James and his friends decide to raid the cabin and look for this item that they need from there. And they're killing people along the way. They're torturing this family. And it's up to Becky to take revenge, basically, in a kind of Home Alone babysitter movie type deal, where she sets a few traps and stuff and takes out these guys who are like, 6 or 7 foot. And she's like this little thing. It was an okay film. Some funny little violence in there. And I say funny because Kevin James's eyeballs hanging out at one point and it looks ridiculous. But I had an okay time with this. It's your typical revenge movie that you've seen it all before. But it's an easy watch. It's under 90 minutes and it's on Netflix. So yeah, if you like that type of thing, it's probably worth it. But I'm looking forward to Wrath of Becky because I've heard it's a little bit better than this one. So we will see. But that is Becky. Next up, I watched Insidious The Red Door. Now, this is a franchise that has kind of derailed a little bit for me. I'm not the biggest fan of it lately. I really liked the first one. I loved the third. I think that's a very underrated film. But 2 and 4 haven't really done nothing for me. And I just thought, yeah, the franchise is losing its way a little bit now. And even when I go back and rewatch the first one, I definitely appreciate the first half of the film more than the second. And I feel like that's the case with all these movies, including Insidious 5. This was Patrick Wilson's directional debut, and I was interested to see what he could do with the camera, and he does have a good few tension-building jump scares, but it's all done with silence more than shock value, if you like. There's an MRI moment where this Patrick Wilson goes into an MRI machine. I thought that was all done really well. But again, when we go to the further, I lose interest. It's the not knowing, it's the build-up. That's what gets me with these Insidious films. When it's all finally revealed, I kind of lose interest. I don't like the look of the further. I never really have. I think the demons look a bit over the top sometimes as well with the makeup and stuff. And this does retread old ground with the story. It feels like we are just exploring the first film again because Dalton has gone off to college and him and his dad have had their memory wiped from what happened in Insidious Parts 1 or 2. And they're trying to find out again, and they find out that they can astral project into the fairs and stuff, and we as the audience already knew that, so it wasn't too exciting for us. But overall, it was okay. It's just one of the weakest Insidious films, and that isn't saying much. So that is Insidious The Red Door. Next up, me and my wife just wanted an easy comedy to watch one Saturday night, and this is one we missed from 2022, and we went with Ticket with Paradise, and we had a really fun time with this. This follows Julia Roberts, is it? Is it Julia Roberts? I think it is. And George Clooney. And they are this old divorced couple, and they have to go to this paradise island to see their daughter get married because she's decided to just marry this guy she's met over there. And they have to come together again, even though they don't want to see off their daughter get married. And this is a really fun time. You just see the squabbles they have constantly throughout the film, and it is always fun. I really loved it where she said shush to George Clooney at one point, and he went, "Don't you shush me." The comedy was all on point. It was really funny and just a very, very easy movie to watch. If you just want to sit back and not think too much, Ticket to Paradise is your ticket to the movies because, yeah, it's nothing spectacular or anything. It's just a fun comedy. So yeah, I do recommend it if you like your comedic movies or just something easy to watch one night with your partner or whatever. It's one of them you can just throw on and not think too much about. That is Ticket to Paradise. Next up, I watched Dracula from 1958. Now, I was on a stream with Alan Scouser over on my horror channel, and this is one of his favourite movies ever, so I watched it. And I actually picked up the Blu-ray after I watched it. So I watched this on Prime, I think it was. And this was a film I'd always wanted to see. As a horror fan, I feel like I should have watched it by now. This follows Christopher Lee as Count Dracula. And this was a really interesting tale. I love the whole gothic look of the movie. All the Hammer cliches are in there with the sound effects and stuff, but they really do work. I wish we got a bit more of Christopher Lee in the film, but as Alan has spoke to me, he says he's not really in the Marvel too much, and it's more effective when he comes on the screen, and that's what they were aiming for, which I do agree with, I suppose. I did like the story, though, involving Van Helsing, and he's coming to discover where his friend's gone and all, and stuff. Dr. What was his name? I forgot his name. Jonathan Harker. That's it. Yeah, it was an interesting story. I'm going to rewatch this again and maybe review it on the horror channel at some point. But I've heard there's another Christopher Lee film called Curse of Dracula or something. I think it might be called that. And there's also Dracula AD 1970 something, which I thought was the more famous Dracula film until I found out it was this one. So maybe I'll check them out at some point as well. But overall, I had a good time with this, and Christopher Lee is just awesome as Count Dracula. So that is Dracula. Next up, I watched House on the Edge of the Park from 88 Films on 4K. A film I had never seen from the Video Nasties list. And I thought this was going to be terrible, like a lot of the movies are. But you know what? I appreciated what it had to say in the third act. Now, this is a home invasion film. This basically follows these two guys who are invited to a party by a bunch of rich folk. And the rich folk kind of take the piss out of them and make fun of them. And one of the guys says, look, I'm not having this. I'm going to turn the tables here, and start to torture and hurt and inflict pain on all of these rich folk. But the film has a lot of rapey scenes in there. I mean, it's constantly... this guy here who is in The Last House on the Left, David Hess, I believe his name is just constantly trying to just rip women's clothes off and run knives down them as he sexually abuses them in front of everyone and stuff. And then parts of the movie, I was just like, oh, this is just stupid now. This is just doing it to get women's clothes off and stuff. But the rest of the movie, I got along with. I liked the dialogue and stuff. I liked some of the characters in here. But the third act surprised me. I didn't see it coming. I just thought this was going to be an excuse for a movie where we torture people sexually and inflict pain on them and stuff. I thought that was just going to be it. But the third act, it sort of unraveled the story a little bit there, and I didn't see it coming, so I appreciated that. There's a really great song in here too at one point where the characters in the house are dancing. I've played it numerous times after watching this film. But yeah, not a bad movie at all. And it surprised me. So that is House on the Edge of the Park. Looked brilliant on 4K. For such an old film from 1980, 88 Films knocked it out the park here. So I can't wait to pick up more of their releases, but it is House on the Edge of the Park. Next up, I watched one of my favourite films of the month. Not quite my new release of the month, but I think it got into my top 10, and that it was Rye Lane. A very short movie, only 80-odd minutes long, and this follows a guy who's just broke up with his girlfriend in the middle of London, and he's walking around the streets. I think he's at an arc alley, and this girl hears him crying, and I think she just broke up with her boyfriend as well, and they spend the day together in London and have the best time, and they really connect as these two friends, and you really do root for them. They are great characters to get behind, and the stuff they get up to is just a joy to watch. I really enjoyed it when he had to go and meet his ex-partner at one point, and she comes with him and sort of makes a fool out of the other two and stuff. I thought that was excellent stuff. But I just had a really good time with this. The movie flowed perfectly. It was really well paced. Like I said, you just root for both of these characters. You get behind them. You want it to work out for them. So I do highly recommend this. If you like these type of films, it's on Disney+. Definitely worth giving a go. One of the best movies of 2023. Next up, I watched Sleepaway Camp, which was a slasher film from 1983 that is iconic, and I have never seen this movie. I've seen people talk about it, but we have been struggling for a long time to get a Region B release here over in the UK. There isn't one as of speaking now. I hope they bring it, but I did get this online and I watched it, and you know what? This movie is so bad it's good. It's ridiculous, but I could not help but take my eyes off it. This follows these two cousins called Ricky and Angela. They go to this camp and the body count starts to pile up, and you don't quite know who it is. It's a whodunit slasher movie, kind of like the first Friday the 13th. A lot of first position point of view kills. There are some weird characters in this movie. There's this like fat paedophile who's the chef at the camp, and he's just openly admitting to his staff members that he likes children. There is the guy who runs the camp's about 16. He's trying to get into one of the young girls who's about 15. There's just so many strange things going on in this movie. The kills are so cheesy. There's this guy who gets drowned by the killer, and as he's getting drowned, he kind of waves to the audience and stuff. And a lot of you may probably know the iconic ending. Now, I won't get into it too much, but I won't name what happens, but this was a really cool twist ending. I knew it going in, but it's funny when you actually see it come to fruition. I've only seen memes and stuff of it before, but yeah, it's a fun ending. I think it's an overrated ending, but it was still fun. And the character of Angela in this film, man, she's a mute for this movie, and people are just getting pissed off with her all the time because she will not answer them, and she's just staring at them, infuriating these characters even more, and that was just really fun to see. So Sleepaway Camp was a fun movie, and I've got more of the franchise to talk about in just a minute, but it made me want to watch the others. Yeah, a fun slasher film. If you like this subgenre, I can see you liking this movie. Next up, I watched Bearbox Barcelona. I thought this was going to be a really great film going by the first 30 minutes. We're following an antagonist this time, and some of the stuff that happened, I was like, oh, this is going to be an interesting sequel. And unfortunately, this film just goes off a cliff in the middle and then finally crash lands into the river below on the final act. It just went very, very boring and dull. There's no characters you can get behind here. The ending is very abrupt, where I was just scratching my head thinking, what the hell was that all about? I think the film tried to be too clever for its own good. I liked the first Bearbox film, but this one was just a wasted sequel. I hope they do something else with the next one, because I heard this might be like a side sequel, if you like. A sub-sequel, I forget the name, I'm sorry. But for me, it just didn't work at all. It was a poor movie, one of the worst of the year, unfortunately. So that is Bearbox Barcelona. Next up, we have my new release of the month, and that is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. This is definitely one of the strongest franchises ever in movie history, and this continues that trend. So we see Ethan Hunt teaming up with his colleagues again in Simon Pegg and stuff, and Ving Rhames. I was going to say Marcellus Wallace then. Ving Rhames, of course. And we have Hayley Atwell, who's coming into this movie as well, who's a great character in this film, and hope to see more of her going forward. And this basically follows this thing that is infiltrating technology called the Enigma, was it? Was it the Enigma? I think. And it sort of got a mind of its own. It's kind of like Terminator, but within the computers and stuff, not actually robots, which was a scary thought, I felt. And it's up to Ethan Hunt to track down these keys. There's two keys that come together to make one key, and I think he has one part of it, and he needs the other part, otherwise it's going to get into the wrong hands and stuff. Yeah, really, really fun Mission Impossible movie. The stunt where he jumps off the cliff was awesome. Even though I'd seen that leading up to it, which I wish I didn't, it was still interesting to watch. It was still cool and awesome to watch Ethan do this. And the train sequence at the end was fantastic. What a great third act this was. Yeah, I can't wait to watch this one again, actually. And it's my #1 movie of the year on Letterboxd right now. I have it ranked #1. So that is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Next up, I watched Rec 2. Now, Rec is one of the best found footage movies ever made, in my opinion. And this one was one I've just put off for a long time. I don't know why. And a lot of people actually do like this film, but for me, it just felt like a cash grab, really, which is understandable. If Rec's doing well, they're going to make a second one. But I think this one, I think I watched this too late in life, because I have seen so many found footage films now done brilliantly since this one came out, and I've gone back and watched this, and it just didn't really have the same desired effect. Now, I watched Wreck last year with my wife. She'd never seen it, and it still stood up. Apart from the third act with a little bit too much shouting, it still stood up. But this one, it just felt like there was no heart in the movie. I didn't like the story direction they took with sort of demons being inside these zombies, if you like, and exploring that avenue. Just wasn't for me. The SWAT team getting told by this guy that they can't leave the building, and he's just this little dweeb. The SWAT team should have just smacked him across the face and got the hell out of there, but he's like he's in charge. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really like this film, I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was watchable, but I was just losing interest the more the movie went on. So unfortunately, not a good sequel in my opinion, and the first one is definitely way better than this. So that is Wreck 2. Next up, after watching Sleepaway Camp, I watched Sleepaway Camp 2 Unhappy Campers. I watched it online and then instantly wanted the Blu-ray, and my good friend Alex sent me this, so thank you, Alex. I'll talk about this more in my Blu-ray update, which I've got coming after this video. But this was such a terribly brilliant movie, is the way I like to put it. It kind of knows what it is. It's a horror comedy, but Angela in this film, played by Pamela Springsteen, was absolutely fantastic. What a character she is in this film. She is having so much fun in this movie. The kills are left, right, and centre. I think the kill count might be treble the first film. There's that many in there. There's a moment where these characters are dressed as Freddy and Jason, and then the real killer in the film comes dressed as Leatherface and takes them out. It's just a really fun time. A movie that is so bad it's good, and it's a guilty pleasure movie of mine now. I am so happy to own this on Blu-ray. I don't get this poster. I don't think this character's even in the movie. But Sleepaway Camp 2 Unhappy Campers was such a surprise for me. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait to watch this again at some point, probably with a few friends and some beers. I think that'll work better. But yeah, really, really fun time. Surprised the hell out of me. And it's not overall as good as Sleepaway Camp, but if you ask me to pick one right now to watch, I'd probably go with this one. I just think it has a lot more rewatchability and fun factor with it, even though the first one is a better overall film, if that makes sense. But Sleepaway Camp 2 was awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. And you're only going to like it if you appreciate the subgenre and the 80s style. So that is Sleepaway Camp 2 Unhappy Campers. Next up, I finally watched The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I felt like the last person on earth who's seen this movie. This is basically about this girl who is possessed, and this priest goes to a house, and instead of calling for medical help, he tries to exorcise this girl called Emily Rose, and she ends up dying. And the argument is that the priest should have went for medical help, and he's on trial for sort of making her death, or assisting her death, if you like. I'm trying to find the word, sorry. And it's all about the trial, the court case, and it flashes back and forth to Emily Rose's life when she was possessed. Good back and forth dynamic. However, there's a little bit of a spanner thrown into the works that the court case actually starts to become haunted by these demons, and the woman who's defending this priest is starting to see things at night and stuff. So that was a cool little dynamic to have within the movie. I did enjoy this film. It's a slow burner, but you're never really bored. You're just interested in watching this story unveil itself. And I had a good time with it. I'm not really a big fan of demonic horror possession movies like the Pope's Exorcist we got this year. They just seem to be coming left, right, and centre all the time. This one done something a little bit different with the court case thrown in and stuff. So yeah, I did enjoy it. It's a good 7 out of 10 movie. That is The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Okay, getting on to the weekend of Oppenheimer now. This was a big event in movie history, I suppose. So social media, everyone was going to see these two movies. So on the Friday, I went with my friend Jamie because my wife was not interested in this film. And I went to see Oppenheimer on iSense, which is the equivalent to IMAX. It's just a different name. And the sound in this iSense theatre was fantastic, especially the moment where they do the test run of the nuclear bomb. I mean, that was incredible to watch. However, I know this is an unpopular opinion. I did like the film, but I didn't love it, and I'm definitely going to have to rewatch this movie. I feel this way all the time with Christopher Nolan films. I always appreciate them more on a rewatch. Even The Dark Knight, which I thought was excellent when I went to see it at the cinema, the more I watch that movie, the more I realise it's one of the greatest films ever made. It's in my top 10 ever. But at first I thought it was a very good film, and now it's just perfection to me. There's Inception, another one. The more I watch it, the more I think it's amazing. There's still a couple of other Christopher Nolan films that I need to rewatch, like Interstellar and Dunkirk and stuff, but The Prestige I've seen twice. I loved it more the second time. So I'm definitely going to be doing this with Oppenheimer when it comes out on 4K. I may even try and catch it at the cinema before it goes off again. Maybe just go on my own and watch it and take it all in. But it was still a good film. It was still an interesting story. It just moves at a very fast pace at times. You're trying to keep up with some of the scenes, and it's going back and forth at times within its story instead of just telling it all in one go. I don't think it was badly paced. I don't think it was the 3-hour runtime. I didn't think I felt it, but I just kind of wish I weren't getting a little bit lost here and there. And maybe that's just my attention span. I was a little bit tired going to watch this movie, which is never a good idea if you're going into a 3-hour film. It was the end of the week, but I'm definitely looking forward to rewatching this one. But overall, I give it a 3.5 on my Letterboxd, but that could easily maybe go to a 5 next time. I don't know. We will have to wait and see. But for now, I'm just going to give it a good 7.5 out of 10. 3.5 on Letterboxd. That is Oppenheimer. And next up, I went with my wife the next day to watch Barbie. She definitely wanted to see this more than me, but I was always going to go and see it anyway because I'm a movie whore, so there you go. And that is... this is a movie that is definitely not for kids, in my opinion. This is a film that is definitely geared towards adults, and that really surprised me about the film. It didn't quite know its audience. Well, it did, but I don't know if the marketing team did. There was kids going to see this movie. I've just seen loads of pictures of mums taking their daughters who were like 6 and 7. I'm thinking they're not going to get this movie at all. But this is Margot Robbie living in the Barbie world, and then she goes over to the real world with Ken, and then Ken comes back and says men should rule the world because they rule the other world, so we're going to take over Barbie world now and stuff. It was a fun time. There was some really funny humour in here and stuff. I think there's too many mixed messages going on. It didn't quite know where to land, especially in the third act. I don't think the movie quite knew what to do with itself there. But overall, it was a fun watch. Some really fun characters in this movie. Alan is awesome. I really love the narration in this film. I don't know who it was who was narrating this film, but they were some of the best moments in the movie. And it kind of pokes fun at social media and stuff, where there was a joke about Margot Robbie being mid when she's an absolute 10 out of 10. And the movie plays a little joke there in the middle of the film when she's kind of upset and stuff. I think this was a fine movie. It was fine. It's not one of my favourites of the year or anything, but I had a good time with it. That is Barbie. Next up, we have another slasher film called Cherry Falls, and this stars Brittany Murphy and Michael Biehn, who is one of my favourite actors ever. Obviously, I give my older release of the month to Aliens there, and he's in The Terminator, so great to see him in a film I hadn't seen before. And this is another whodunit slasher movie from the 90s. It's got that 90s feel running right through the movie. Very, very short film, and 87 minutes long. And this sees a killer targeting virgins around this place, this village called Cherry Falls, and all the kids decide to have a mating party and sleep with one another so they're safe from this killer who's killing these virgins. And I just thought it was really funny the way Michael Biehn, who's the detective of this film, of the sheriff, sorry, determines that he's just killing virgins because he's killed 2 girls who are virgins, and that's the killer's motive. Why couldn't it have been a coincidence? I mean, they're all in high school. Yeah, that was hilarious to me. But overall, I did enjoy this movie. I did not guess the end. I didn't see the killer coming, which I think always works for whodunit films. If you don't guess, then the movie's done its job, I suppose. But yeah, I definitely rewatch this again. Glad to own it on Blu-ray. And that is Cherry Falls. Next up, we have Sleepaway Camp 3, Teenage Wasteland. And again, Angela is back, basically. This is filmed back-to-back with part 2. and you can tell that they've probably spent most of their budget on part 2, because the kills here are not as bloody, they're not as creative. A lot of them are off screen. There's people being killed by sticks. I don't think this is as good as the second one, and definitely not as good as the first, but it's still a watchable movie. It's simple fun that you can just sit back, relax, and have fun with, especially if you're with a few friends having a few beers. It's so bad it's good again. Just not as good as the second movie. It's kind of a revamp of the second, but not as good. But I still had a fun time with it. You know, I'm glad to have watched it, and I would definitely watch it again. I'm glad to own this on Blu-ray, and Alex actually sent me this, so thank you so much, Alex. There's some really strange dialogue in this film. Like, out of nowhere, people will just say the most weirdest things. And there's this one moment where they're talking about their favourite movies, and this guy goes, he gets asked what's his favourite type of movies, and he goes, one's weird, tits and blood. But yeah, it's an okay slasher. I just wish there was a little bit more story thrown in and stuff. But yeah, that is Sleepaway Camp 3, Teenage Wasteland. Now, I'm going to leave my Sleepaway Camp review playlist down below, because I'm going to be reviewing Return to Sleepaway Camp next, and Sleepaway Camp 4, even though it's the 5th one. And I'm going to be ranking them all at the end. So if you want to see my full thoughts on Sleepaway Camp, I'll leave my playlist down below, and it is all on my horror channel. And if you haven't checked out the horror channel yet, there's your link to go and check it out. And if you like what you see, maybe subscribe. So if you want to see my full thoughts on the first 3 Sleepaway Camp films and more to come, that'll be down below in the description. Next up, I watched the new A24 film, Talk to Me. Now, this was a really fun time. This was a possession movie where it's sort of used as a party trick. Now, there's this like hand that was cut off I think it was cut off the body of this hypnotist or something like that, who could see spirits and stuff. And when you shake the hand and say, talk to me, you see these demons, and it sort of makes you say things in front of people that you wouldn't usually say, or, you know, makes you kind of go into a mad trance and stuff, and makes you do weird things. That's all I'll basically say, because the movie, it sounds stupid what I'm saying, but it's actually a really clever film. And I just love the pacing of this movie, the story, watching it play out when they go a little bit too far with this party trick. It's kind of like a drug addiction type thing, but if you know, it feels like all these characters are addicted to playing this game, if you like. And I just watched this story unfold, and I just really did appreciate this movie. It was a new and original, fresh take on horror. The third act was fantastic. I loved it. And Sophie Wilde, who's the main protagonist of this film, put in a hell of a performance. So, yeah, I just thought this movie was great and one of the best horrors of the year. One of my favourite A24 films, believe it or not. So, that is Talk to Me. Definitely give this a go if you're a horror fan. Next up, I'm going to be talking about 2 TV series that I watched. I watched this throughout the month, and I finally finished it at the end, and that is Welcome to Wrexham. This follows Ryan Reynolds and, oh my God, Rob McElhenney, who is in Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and they buy this 4th-tier English club called, or the Welsh actually, called Wrexham. And if you're not into football, it basically is just showing them by the club, and they want to get it out the bottom league all the way to the Premier League, which is the top tier of English football. And this follows the first season they take over. And it definitely done well to balance their way of buying the football with the actual football, all the fans' point of view, what they think. And these are only like 25-minute episodes. It was one of the easiest TV shows I've ever watched. But even if you're not into football, I do think you could enjoy this, especially if you're a fan of Ryan Reynolds, and just see how it all plays out. Ryan Reynolds really doesn't seem that interested at first. He's just helping his friend Rob and just seeing where it goes. And by the end, man, he's pulling his hair out when Wrexham are conceding goals, or when they become so close to winning a football match and stuff. He's just like on the edge of his seat, and he can't believe what this sport has actually done to him. I remember at one point he says, what happens next after the final whistle if it's still a draw? Do we go to penalties? Is it extra time? And the guy says, no, it's extra time, then it's penalties. And he goes, so I got another 30 minutes of this? And the guy goes, yeah, another 30 minutes. He goes, holy shit, this sport kills people. Ryan Reynolds, what I like about him, he's really like that in real life. Like, you see him in the movies, he's like this in real life. He's just a really funny guy, a really down-to-earth character, or person, should I say. I really enjoy it. And Rob McElhenney, who I've never seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but he was a really likable guy as well. And seeing these two buy this football club and go on this journey was awesome. So yeah, that is Welcome to Wrexham on Disney+. And last up, I watched the first series of Inside #9. I'm actually on the second series right now. My dad has told me to watch this for a long time. My dad's friend in work, my friend is work as well. I work with my dad. He's told me to watch it numerous times. And when I was on the live stream with Alan Scouser, whose channel link I will leave down below, by the way, definitely go and check him out. He is a fan of this show as well, and he got me more interested in watching it after speaking to him. And this is an anthology series, kind of like Black Mirror. They're only 30 minutes long at most, and they all take place inside a house called Number 9. It could be a big rich mansion, it could be a little apartment block, but they're always Number 9, and they're all different stories. And one of them is actually in a actor's changing room or dressing room, and that's Number 9. So yeah, not always houses, but this follows Reese Shearsmith and David Pemberton, is it? Who are the creators of The League of Gentlemen, if you remember that show. And they star in nearly every episode as different characters and stuff. It's an anthology series, like I said, kind of like Black Mirror, but I don't think it's as clever as Black Mirror, but it's a little bit different. It's not too sci-fi, if you like. I do think some of these stories are definitely better than the others, which is the case with every anthology series you watch. But I do think they could stick the landing a little bit better. Like this first series, there's some endings that I just wish they would have done a little bit better there and thought about it a little bit more. And I was like scratching my head at the end going, oh, I wish they just would have explained it a little bit more there or done something a little bit different. But watching the stories play out, you know, it's really fun. It's a fun show. One of my favourites involved Reese Shearsmith's character, who he's seeing this tramp outside his apartment block, and then he goes out to the shop and the tramp knocks and says, you forgot your card. You dropped it on the floor next to me. So Reese Shearsmith gives him like £20 or something. And one thing leads to another. And this tramp or homeless person, should I say, sorry about that, he comes into the house and becomes friends with him, if you like. And they sort of get along. And this homeless guy ends up sort of going that way, really, and Reese Shearsmith sort of goes in a downward spiral, if you like. So they are interesting stories. They're fun to watch, and I do recommend it, especially if you like The League of Gentlemen and you like British humour and British drama. I mean, it's more like dark comedy, dark humour, if you like. But I'm really looking forward to delving into more of these series. Series 2 has started off really well, so looking forward to that. And there's like 9 series, and they're all on BBC iPlayer. So that is Inside #9, Series 1. Okay, guys, hope you all enjoyed this end of month vlog. Have you seen any of these movies or TV shows? Let me know down below, and we'll get a discussion going. And don't forget to check out my Blu-ray and 4K update coming out after this video as well. So thanks so much, guys. Take it all easy. I'll see you all in the next video.